So 8 Republican presidential hopefuls met in Milwaukee last night for the first of a number of GOP debates, presidential debates, noticeably absent Donald Trump himself, the front runner by a long shot, by double-digit numbers at this point. It was a Fox News debate, and Fox News decided they're going to prevent any other news outlet, including this one, including any online streaming shows, from at all showing clips of the debate. Yes, because we live in a time where everything, including presidential debates, have been privatized, and apparently the rights to which are purely owned by Fox News. So sadly, we cannot go into all of the clips, and there are many. I encourage you guys to look at them on the platform formerly known as something that was safe to be on, Twitter, as well as other places. But we're still, Sharon, we're gonna go through some of these highlights. We're gonna talk about what was said, what wasn't said, and then who won the debate according to people who watched it, according to Republicans who watched it, most importantly. So first and foremost, what was talked about? Let's go into it. So New York Times did a list of the amount of time spent on all these different issues. Subjects discussed the most. Interestingly, although horridly, abortion, given almost 8 minutes. And we'll talk about what was said. Donald Trump coming in second, which is strange for him, but 6 minutes and 50 seconds. Then people's own credentials and education was a big thing. Border security, a lot of talk of invading Mexico to stop the fentanyl crisis. That's fun. Ukraine, crime, economy, foreign policy, and government spending. Stuff that was hardly touched on. Climate, President Biden. This is the second graphic. Climate, President Biden. And interestingly, in my book, trans rights and trans topics was all the way down there, 20 seconds. So we'll get into exactly all of those shades. But I guess maybe before we jump into this, Sharon, I wanted to know, because I was surprised, and I think maybe people who watch this, I was fairly surprised at how well the moderators did at controlling this thing, and also how pointed some of these questions were. There were pointed questions about whether candidates would support Donald Trump, which we'll talk about. There were pointed questions about climate change, and there was like, hey, show of hands type questions. These moderators were not doing what Fox News usually does, which is sort of just making it really easy for everyone to just like hit the same old talking points again and again and again.
No, I think you're exactly right about that. And of course, though, it's not easy to control candidates who don't even want to answer anything real because they don't perhaps have anything real to say. You saw when they, as you referenced, said, raise your hand if you're gonna support Donald Trump. I believe it was DeSantis, kind of center, screen right, looked to see, I mean, is that who we really want to be president? But the moderators did their work, even as Chris Christie was trying to answer a question and there was booze drowning him out. You know, Chris Christie doesn't usually stop talking, but even he had to pause before the booze, and Bret Baier did turn around and address the audience and say, yes, but if you could just hold your booze so that we may continue and just get through this. Let's just get through this. But I think they did a reasonable job with these people who were trying to dodge left and right.
Absolutely, and you're totally right about, like, I mean, it's nonsensical. They are talking about issues that have nothing to do with the American people, which is why I was surprised that instead of asking a bunch of questions about Hunter Biden's laptop, which ironically, Chris Christie was one of the only people to mention Hunter Biden this entire debate. I know for those of you who didn't watch it, like, that is surprising. And the fact that DeSantis hardly said the word woke, like, that's also surprising. I mean, he's also just completely giving it up when it comes to Disney, which is hilarious. But like, these were the so-called culture war issues that was supposed to and have been setting people like Ron DeSantis apart. They've been propelling the Republican, at least their like stump speeches and their little viral moments, completely absent. And I think, for all Fox News's faults, it's kind of thanks to the moderators that they tried to keep them on subject. Hell, guys, they even had a live camera outside of the Fulton County jail in Georgia, where earlier that day, yes, Rudy Giuliani and others turned themselves in. Like, this is a very different Fox News. So I'm curious how this will all play out. But let's talk about what they did get into. So the candidates during the Republican primary debate for president were asked that if they lost, which let's be real, they'll likely lose to Donald Trump, will they actually support Donald Trump for president, despite everything that they've been saying? And according to Politico and according to us watching, asked if they would support Trump as the party's nominee, even if he was convicted of a crime. 6 of the 8 candidates raised their hands with varying degrees of enthusiasm, with only Christie and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson indicating they would not support the former president again. So how this went down was, first person to raise their hand was Vivek Ramaswamy. That dude punching above his weight. We saw that all night, very enthusiastic. Very much, I mean, in terms of the Iadarola like succession, next in line from Donald Trump, clearly. So Vivek raises his hand. Everyone else, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Doug, what's my man's name? Doug Burgum, governor of North Carolina. Everybody raises their hand except for Asa Hutchinson, doesn't make a move. Ron DeSantis, as Sharon Reed pointed out earlier, looks around. Then slowly, okay, if we're all doing it, I vote yes too. And then Chris Christie, and again, this is important to note, kind of had it both ways. So Christie, shaking his fist slightly, spoke up after the first question, sidestepping the issue of prosecutors that many Republicans have criticized as politicized, but calling attention to Trump's underlying behavior. He said someone has to stop normalizing the conduct, though his comments were met with displeasure by some in the audience as well as on the stage. Booing is allowed, but it does not change the truth, he said. So he kind of tried to be like, I would, but I wanted to make a point. So it's still this gray area, Sharon. He's still trying to say he might support him, he might not. Honestly, Asa Hutchinson, like, this dude is a rabid anti-choice nut job, but at least he had like the wherewithal to not go along with everyone else.
Well, even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes, okay? So, but this is true, it's true. With Chris Christie, he has to kind of hedge, even though he leads with bluster and bullyism a lot. Is that a word? Because remember, he's the guy that was standing next to Trump for so long. Can I be your attorney general? Can I be in the White House? Can you get Jared not to be mad at me? So, we can't forget these things. They were there when, so no matter who raises their hands or who doesn't, I just have like a crystal ball or something that tells me, well, they're just gonna change their mind anyway. Whatever way the wind blows.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw that happen in every other election in 2016, in 2020. I mean, 2020, obviously, there was no one running against him, but 2016, we saw that everyone folded. I mean, these are all people who are hoping for a position in Trump's cabinet. I mean, Nikki Haley got a position in Trump's cabinet after completely changing her tune on Trump. And now they're sort of trying to walk it back a little bit, but not completely. But at the end of the day, even people who have made money, like former Attorney General Bill Barr, off of condemning Donald Trump, right? The supposed rift, that we're supposed to laud him and celebrate his heroism. Even he said he would support Donald Trump ultimately, even if he was convicted of one of the how many criminal cases now. And we're awaiting a 4th time that he's gonna go down and be booked. This time he's gonna have his mugshot taken. So it doesn't change. That being said, it is interesting how they understood and how the candidates position themselves in relationship to what happened on January 6th. Because on the stage, you had Mike Pence, the vice president at the time, who certified the electoral votes, the thing he was supposed to do and is supposed to do according to the Constitution. And the moderators asked, was it the right thing to do to certify those votes and certify those electors? Tim Scott was asked pointedly, and he said absolutely. He was the first candidate to answer the question. Christie Haley, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, agreed with Scott. However, DeSantis danced around the question. This is my favorite. DeSantis, again, really trying to get that insurrectionist vote, was said, it's not about January 6, 2021, it's about January 20th, 2025. Oh, well done, my dude, well practiced. When the president is gonna take office, DeSantis said. DeSantis later clarified and said that Mike did his duty. I got no beef with him, which was a very interesting moment, Sharon. I don't know if you saw it, where he was like, I mean, yeah, he did his duty. Doesn't mean if he thinks it was right or wrong. He was just like, nah, he did his duty. I've got no beef with him, which I think might play well, even though I think broadly DeSantis did horribly in this. But what do you think about that, trying to thread the needle? And were you surprised by the number of candidates who said, yeah, he did the right thing?
You can't lead when you're waiting to see if the boos emerge before you answer. It means you lack conviction. You stand for nothing. It's whatever someone tells you to stand for. So I wasn't surprised by it. He tried to bully the moderators in that moment by saying, we're not kids. We don't have to raise our hands. Well, you kind of do. Okay, let's dumb it down for you. Okay, DeSantis. Raise your hand if you believe this guy did the right thing. And I'm really so sick of this question. For all the things that the moderators did right, I thought this was the lamest question. It's the easiest question in the world, and they still botched it. Look how he still botched it. Mike Pence is not a hero. It was written on an old flaky piece of paper hundreds of years ago. This is what we're doing in this instance. And that's all he did. He fulfilled his duties, okay?
Yeah. I mean, he also tried to see if he could get out of it. Like, sure. He also asked former Vice President Dan Quayle, is there a way that I can't certify these? Is that and Dan Quayle was like, look, I don't know how to spell potato, but I definitely know that you can't do this. And he was like, okay, cool. And it's the reason that Mike Pence is not being arraigned this week.